Carl Panzram. Charles Carl Panzram was born on the 28th of June 1891. He died on the 5th of September 1930. He was an American serial killer and in prison. Confessions in his autobiography, Carl confessed to having murdered 21 boys and men, only 5 of which could be corroborated. He is suspected of having killed more than 100 boys and men in the United States. Carl was born on the 28th of June 1891 on a farm near East Grand Forks, Minnesota, and was the 6th of 7 children. All were born to East Prussian immigrants. Carl's childhood was not easy and he was not liked by other children. When Carl was 5, he claimed he was a liar and thief, and he became more and more aggressive and nastier as he grew older. Carl and his family were abandoned by his father when he was 7. And at the time this occurred, Carl developed an infection in his mastoid process of his temporal bone, in which he had to go for surgery, which was done at home. But then his infection worsened and had to be taken for even further surgery. Afterwards, his 5 older brothers left the family. In 1903, he started to have run-ins with the law. He was charged by the juvenile court for being drunk and disorderly at only 8. When he was 12, he was arrested for being drunk and incorrigible. Then, not long after his second arrest, Carl stole a cake, apples, and a revolver from a neighbour's house. In October of 1903, Carl was sent by his mother to Minnesota State Training School, which was a reformatory school. Carl wrote a letter stating he was being beaten, tortured, and raped by the staff there. The children called it the paint shop, as they left a room painted with blood and bruises. Carl hated the school and had a terrible time in it, and he wanted to burn it down, in which he did without any detection. Successfully, it happened on 7th of July 1905. Some claim that Carl actually killed a 12-year-old boy at the school. Carl was paroled at the West Ring Training School, where he was detained after stealing money from his mother. Carl was already at just 14 and became an alcoholic and had a long criminal record of burglary and robbery offences, but also tried to kill a Lutheran cleric with a revolver. A few weeks after his parole, Carl ran off to live on the streets, and he went on a lot of trains to get around, but was often gang raped by homeless men on these occasions. In 1920, Panzram committed a robbery in Newport, Rhode Island. On 16th of September 1920, he burglarized the Taft Mansion in New Haven, Connecticut. A residence of William Howard Taft. By the time of former President, Carl specifically targeted the mansion out of animus and had been holding against Taft since his incarceration. At Fort Leavenworth, he stole a large amount of jewelry and bounds, as well as Taft's Colt M1 1911 .45 caliber handgun. Using Taft's stolen money, Carl bought a small sailing yacht at Akista and embarked on an 8-year-long murder spree which spanned several countries and involved multiple victims. Sailing south to New York City, where 3 months Carl lured sailors away from port bars onto the yacht, made them drunk before raping them, and then murdered the men with Taft's stolen pistol, subsequently dumping their bodies near Execution Rocks Lights in Long Island South. In this manner, Carl claimed to have killed 10 men. The sailor murders ended only after Akista ran aground and sank near Atlantic City, New Jersey, during which his 2 potential victims escaped to parts unknown. On 26th of October, Carl was arrested in Stamford, Connecticut for burglary and possession of a loaded gun. In 1921, he served 6 months in jail in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Carl caught a ship to southern Africa and landed in Luanda, the capital of colonial Portuguese Angola. In 1921, Carl was foreman of an oil rig in Angola. He later burnt it down out of what was said spitefully. Shortly after, he decided to seek out a virgin girl. Carl paid a resident Angola family A.E. Ashudas, and in exchange was given a 12-year-old girl whom he raped in his shack later that night. He returned the girl to her family, demanding his money back on suspicion of the girl not being an actual virgin. The family then gave Carl an 8-year-old girl, whom he also raped in his shack. who was eventually taken back to the family because he suspected that she too was not a virgin. He then claimed that he raped and killed an Angolan boy, estimated to be 11 or 12 years old. In his confession to this murder, he wrote, "His brains were coming out of his ears when I left them, and he will never be any dealer." He also claimed that he hired a boat with 6 rowers, shot the rowers with a Luger pistol, and threw the bodies to the crocodiles. After his return to the United States, Carl asserted he raped and killed 2 small boys, beating one to death with a rock on the 18th of July 1922 in Salem, Massachusetts, and strangling the other later that year near New Haven. After his murder spree in Salem, Carl worked as a night watchman in Yonkers, New York, north of Manhattan, at a Becco Mill factory in Providence. He stole a yawl and sailed to New Haven, seeking victims to rob and rape and boats to steal. In June 1923, in New Rochelle, New York, he stole a yacht belonging to a police chief of New Rochelle. He picked up a 15-year-old boy named George Wallison and promised him a job on the boat, but instead sodomized him. On June 27, on the river near Kingston, New York, Carl claimed he picked a man up, but then believing the man was going to attempt to rob him, Carl used a .38 caliber pistol from a stolen yacht to kill the John Doe victim. Carl threw the body into the river. On the 28th of June, Carl and Wallison docked at Poughkeepsie, New York. Carl stole $1,000 worth of fishing nets. At Newburgh, New York, Wallison, having witnessed the murder that day, jumped overboard and swam to shore. He reported to the police at Yonkers that he was sexually assaulted by Carl. An alert went out for Captain John O'Leary. On the 29th of June, John O'Leary, who he claimed to be, was arrested in Nyack, New York. But on the 9th of July, Carl tried to escape from jail. He later conned his lawyer by giving him ownership of a stolen boat. In return for bail money, Carl skipped bail and the boat was confiscated by the government agent. On the 26th of August, O'Leary was arrested in Larchmont, New York, after breaking into a train depot. 3 days later, on the 29th of August, O'Leary was cleared as a suspect in the stabbing death of Dorothy Kaufman of Greensburg, New York, committed a month prior. He was sentenced 5 years imprisonment, which in county jail he confessed to the alias Jeff Baldwin, and that he was wanted in Oregon for murder of a policeman. After first being imprisoned in Sing Sing prison, in October, Carl was imprisoned at Clinton Prison in Dannemora, New York, as inmate 75182. While there, he tried to escape but ended up with an injured spine and broken ankles. He was discharged in July of 1928, and he allegedly committed another murder that summer in Baltimore, Maryland. On August the 30th, 1928, Carl was arrested in Baltimore for a Washington, D.C. burglary, stealing a radio and jewelry from the home of a dentist on the 20th of August. 3 men were also arrested as accomplices, and most of the jewelry was recovered. Carl gave his correct name, although he lied by claiming his age as 41 and that he was from Nevada. During his interrogation, he confessed to killing 3 boys earlier that month, 1 in Salem, 1 in Connecticut, and a 14-year-old newsboy in Philadelphia. Carl's confession to killing a boy at Pier 28 on League Island near Philadelphia in August 1928 was confirmed. Boston police were unable to corroborate his other confession. The murder of a boy in Charlestown, Massachusetts. Carl later wrote that he had contemplated mass murder and other acts of mayhem, such as poisoning a city's water supply with arsenic or scuttling a British warship in New York Harbor to provoke a war between the United States and Britain. In light of his extensive criminal record, Carl was sentenced to 25 to life upon arriving at Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, identified as inmate 31614. He warned the warden, "I'll kill the first man that bothers me," because he was considered too psychotic. He was assigned to work alone in the prison laundry room, where the foreman, Robert Warnock, was known to bully and harass other prisoners under him. Warnock was soon antagonized Carl, despite the latter reportedly warning him to back off. On the 20th of June 1929, Carl beat Warnock, whatever you pronounce his name, to death with an iron bar. And after that, he was convicted and sentenced to death. He refused to allow any appeals to his sentence. In response to offers from death penalty, opponents and human rights activists to intervene, he wrote, "The only thanks you and your kind will ever get from me for your efforts on my behalf is that I wish you all had one neck, and that I had my hands on it." While on death row, Carl was befriended by an officer named Henry Philip Lesser, who would give him money to buy cigarettes. Carl was so astonished by this act of kindness. After Lesser provided him with writing materials, Carl wrote a detailed summary of his crimes and Gnostic philosophy. While awaiting execution, Carl explicitly denied having any remorse for any of his actions and began his journal with the statement that, "In my lifetime, I have murdered 21 human beings. I have committed thousands of burglaries, robberies, larcenies, arsons, and last but not least, I have committed sodomy on more than 1,000 male human beings. For all these, I am not in the least bit sorry. I have no conscience, so that does not worry me." Carl was hanged on the 5th of September 1930 as officers attempted to place the custody black hood over his head. He spat in the executioner's face. When asked for any last words, he responded, "Yes, hurry it up, you Uzier bastard. I could kill a dozen men while you're screwing around." Carl also confessed to having committed more than 1,000 acts of rape against males of all ages. After a lifetime of crime, during which he served many prison terms and escaped from many prisons, Carl was executed by hanging for the murder of prison employee at the United States Penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kansas, USA.